Welcome. In this segment, we're going to look at a problem that relates to cost of goods manufactured and cost of goods sold schedules. So get your lecture notes out and follow along. Saratella Manufacturing Corporation uses a job order costing system. Saratella's records show the following inventories. So we've got beginning and ending inventory for direct material, work in process, and finished goods. But notice that work in process ending inventory is unknown. Due to a flood, records showing the value of the work-in-process inventory at the end of the period are missing. The following information relates to Saratella's operations for the year. Direct material purchased, $120,000. Direct labor cost incurred, $78,000. Selling, general, and administrative expense incurred, $25,000. Manufacturing overhead cost incurred, $296,000. Manufacturing overhead applied, $285,000, and cost of goods manufactured is given to be $502,000. Now, based on this information, we're first asked, what is the balance in Saratella's work-in-process inventory account at the end of the year? Now, you know from your prior studies that in a job order system, you could identify which jobs are currently in work-in-process. But because we're not given job information, we're going to have to compute it through the cost of goods manufactured schedule. So let's get started. First, we'll have to compute the direct material used, since what was given was the direct material purchased. All right, to compute direct material used, you will begin with beginning direct material inventory, $20,000. I showed you there what was given in the problem. From there, we're going to add direct material purchases. And I remind you of what was given in the problem, and we're going to add the direct material purchases of $120,000. This tells us that direct material available for production was $140,000. From here, we'll need to subtract ending direct material inventory to get direct material used in production. So let's look at what ending inventory was given to be for direct material. We can see there that it's $26,000. So that will give us direct material used in production, $114,000. So again, emphasize to yourself that direct material purchases and direct material used can be two different things. And you, in the cost of goods manufactured schedule, you want direct material used. All right, let's move on to the cost of goods manufactured schedule. Now, I'll remind you to look at the inventories that were given because cost of goods manufactured, we're going to be evaluating this work in process, and we'll need to know the beginning and ending balance if it's given. So we see that work in process started out at $38,000, but what we're trying to find is the ending work in process. To do that, I'll just start preparing my cost of goods manufactured schedule, starting with that beginning work in process inventory of $38,000. I'll add current production costs. We computed direct material used to be $114,000. Direct labor is given to be $78,000. Overhead applied, $285,000. Minus ending work in process, which is unknown, gives us cost of goods manufactured. Now let me stop and point out a few things. The direct material used was the amount we calculated, not the $120,000 of material purchased, but the $114,000 used. If that's not given, you need to compute it. Then the labor and overhead applied and the beginning and ending work in process, those were all given. Ending work in process was given as unknown. But we can see that is the only unknown, so we can compute cost of the ending work in process inventory by working backward. Or you can create an algebraic equation, 38,000 plus 114,000 plus 78,000 plus 285,000 minus X must equal 502,000, which was given in the problem. So ending work in process inventory is 13,000. What is the amount of cost of goods sold on the income statement? So we know since they want cost of goods sold on the income statement, we will need to compute the adjusted cost of goods sold. All right, when we prepare the cost of goods sold schedule, we will need to know our beginning and ending finished goods inventory balances. So I remind you that that was given to be 80,000 and 73,000. In cost of goods sold schedule, you'll start with beginning finished goods inventory of 80,000. You'll add the cost of goods manufactured, 502,000. Cost of goods available for sale, 582,000. Minus the ending finished goods inventory of 73,000, which was given. That'll give us a cost of goods sold before adjustment of 509,000. We'll need to find our under or over applied overhead to get the adjusted cost of goods sold, because that's, again, what goes on the income statement. Now remember, normally you have to compute cost of goods manufactured, but in this problem it was given. But normally it would be previously computed and you would just feed it into this schedule. All right, to get our under or over applied overhead, we're going to have to compute the amount of this. So I put the information that's given back up here. This is simply the information given in the problem. We will use an overhead T account to analyze this. And remember, actual overhead goes on the debit side, and applied overhead goes on the credit side. So in this problem, you see there in red, actual overhead cost incurred was 296,000. Manufacturing overhead cost applied to production is 285,000. That leaves us an $11,000 debit balance. That means we did not apply enough overhead. Overhead was underapplied by $11,000. Now we can go finish our schedule now. This is where we left off. We will add underapplied overhead. Of course, you subtract overapplied, but we had underapplied overhead of $11,000, and that gives us cost of goods sold after adjustment of $520,000. Now in this problem we did have to do a little problem solving, but you can see that if you know the schedules, you'll be able to solve for any variable that's unknown, whether it's a straightforward problem or one like this where you have to work backward for the ending work in process inventory. All right, so do some more problems and bring any questions you have to class. See you then.